Hello, my name is Nelson, and this tutorial is on how to add sound effects to an Android game that you are programming. Actually, the game I'm going to add sound effects to is the game that you're looking at on your screen right now. This is an Android game programming tutorial. There was 8 of them. It was made from a company named Ed4Java, and they did a good job on programming this game. The thing is, and if you look at the first tutorial, they had a demo of the game and they showed that they had sound effects. They had 2 different types of character, females and male, and they are supposed to have 2 different times sound effects, but they never added the sound effects. It's like they needed one more tutorial to teach you how to add the sound effects and it would have been complete. Well, this is what this is. This is the knife tutorial to show you how to add sound effects to this game made by Ed4Java. Few disclaimers. This is my first Android game I ever developed and followed tutorial using a tutorial, so I might get some of the words and command mixed up, so I apologize for that. My first time using this video software, so I apologize if things don't go as smooth as it should. The fix that I made, since I'm not a experienced programmer, is not by the book, but it's simple, it's clean, and it works very efficiently. So bear with me for those experts who would say I didn't do it exactly as I should, but it works. I'm going to talk kind of quickly because I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible. And lastly, and by the way, I already written down the code into the file that I changed, that I programmed. So basically the way it works, I'll be talking quickly. You just pause the video, type in all the lines, and then resume the video and listen to the explanation, and that'll probably be the best way to handle that. And the last thing is, the way I did this is only the method I use will work only if you're using only 2 different sound effects. If you have another game, this is a good tutorial to get you started on adding sound effects, but it only works with 2 different sound effects, so you may have to come up with a different solution to your game. So let's get started. When we left off with Ed4Java on the 8th tutorial, this is where we're at. We had the game, it was running perfectly, and you can kill these characters. There's a male, another male, female, male. Let's go down here, female, male, and as you notice, there's no sound effects. So we're going to start adding the sound effects to this game called Kill Them All. So here we go. Okay, I got a problem here. We're going to, first thing we're going to do is go on the internet and get 2 sound effects files. You want to launch your Google and you want to type in woman scream sound effects, and you're going to end up with these results. And what you're going to do is scroll down to this result here called shockwave-sound.com, and this is where I found the sound effects to download. And they're free for downloading, and they have the extension WAV. So if you click on it, you end up on this website, and you would notice as you come over here, there are many sound effects for female screaming. Here's a girl screaming in the first one, and there's other ones, so you could pick the one that closely mirrored the one of the tutorial. As for the male screaming, they do have a lot of male screaming in here, in pain, sometimes other words, but they're not one saying ouch. So you can use any one of these as good as any other. What I did though, I had the ability to create my own sound effects. I had a software on my computer called Audio City, and I used that with this mic, and I recorded myself saying ouch, and I saved it as a WAV file. And that's how I got the sound effect for the male, but you can use any one of these male scream as a substitute. So once we do this, we're going to go ahead and start the coding process. Again, you're going to launch your Eclipse. I'm going to disclaimer, this is a different looking Eclipse than what they had in the tutorial. It's just a newer Eclipse, Java. The codes are almost 99.9% the same. You might see a few little differences in there. Ignore them, and they shouldn't affect you at all. So what I did is I saved the 2 sound effect files onto my desktop. Then I went over here to the project folder and opened up the project Kill Them All -training. That's what the one that the tutorial had us called the program. You open it up and you go down here to the resource folder, and what we're going to do is create a subfolder in the resource folder to house our sound effect file. So you're going to right click on the RSC folder, you're going to say new, and you're going to hit folder, and you're going to call this folder raw. Why raw? Other tutorials call them raw. As good as name as any. Just call yours raw, just for following tutorial sake. As you can see, mine's already exists. If it didn't, this finish button would be not washed out, and I would press it. But just say it wasn't. We pressed it. We expand the RSC folder, and what we'll see is the raw folder was corrected. It was created. Then what you do is you go to the desktop and you right click the two sound effect files, say copy, come over here, right click this and say paste. Say we did that, and there goes the files. Now name your files this before you paste them into there. You should name the female scream as female scream dot wave, and the male should be male scream dot wave. And that's it. The sound effects are downloaded into your files, and now we're going to start the coding process. If you do have an earlier version of Juno, you might not have these two files here or not. The tutorial doesn't. Don't worry about it. That's just the Juno version. But you want to go to the folder that's called SRC, expand that. Then you want to expand the folder in there, and you're going to double click on the file called gameview.java. When it does, it opens up in the work area. And this is the only file you're going to need open, because this is the only file you're going to add code to. First you can do is go to line 3 where this first library file is at, and you want to hover over this plus sign near the 3, and you want to click on it. That's going to open up all your library folders you imported. And what you want to do is go at the bottom of that, of the stack of imports, hit enter, and start typing. What you're going to type in is these two files. These are the two files I added to play sound effects. The first one's called Import Android Media Audio Manager and Sound Pool. These are needed to play any type of sound effects or music, background music, if you ever want to add background music. I'm going to delete this line just for neatness sake. Then once you do that, you're going to scroll down a little bit here, and you're going to type in these lines. You can pause the video right now, and you can type it in and resume it when you're done. So quick explanation, I went to the end of the old code where they did their variables and added my own variables. Now this line and the line down here are considered comment lines, and when the computer sees a line that starts with 2 forward slashes, they know that these are comment lines and they're not command lines, and they're to be ignored. And the reason you put comment lines in is to just like markers, so future references, you can know what you did to make the sound effects happen on this game. I use it for that and as markers so I can find the changes for this tutorial sake. So the first, again, the only one you want to type in is these four. If you don't have to type in the comic statements, but you can. The first line, the first one is called a private sample sound. This is used by the sound manager, and you need this more like a holder, and it's going to hold how you plan to play the sound effects for the game. The second is a private integer that I created, a variable called SND male, and SND stands for sound male, and it's used to hold all the information to where you can load and play the sound effects for the male. The same thing for private integer SND female. It's going to hold information to load and play the sound effect for the female. And the last one here is the sound effects for actually this is a private integer, and it's going to hold how many male sprites you had. M sprite, M stands for male, so, and we already initiated to equal 6. So M sprite, when we ever load the game at the beginning, we already know that it's going to hold 6 male sprites, and so we already initiated to 6, and that's going to help us keep track on how many males we have and keep track of the index numbers they hold. And again, this is the comic line. As you can see, I did 2 forward slashes, and then after that I just put a bunch of forward slashes. It doesn't make a difference. The computer's just going to see that the first 2 forward slashes and say this is a comment line, so whatever comes after it, just ignore it. Then what you're going to do is scroll down halfway down this file to this point right here. Sorry for the up and down effect. And the O code is where they're loading the bitmap for the or the ping file for the PNG file for the blood splat. Then you're going to hit enter, and you're going to input these files. You can pause the video here if you like. Well, this is the first one you're going to type in. This is going to store the information in this sound of how the game is going to play the sound effects. It's going to use something called Auto Manager, and it's going to stream the music through the Auto Manager. The second one is the variable. We're going to tell this variable where you can load the sound effect file, and it's going to be in a folder called raw, and the file is going to be called mscreen for the male sound effects, and for the female you're going to be able to load a file in a raw folder called female screen, and that's going to be that information is going to be stored in this SND female variable. Then you're going to scroll all the way down to the end, and to this again, this is all in the same file called gameview.java, and you're going to go to the onTouch event. The onTouch event, if you remember it registered the touch on the screen to destroy a sprite, and you're going to go all the way down to the second if of the old code to the end of that, hit enter, and then you're going to add these lines in here. Go ahead, you can pause the video to take time to type in this if statement. Quick explanation: if statements, if this statement is true, you're going to do this block of code. Then you hit this else statement, and since you did this block of code, you're not going to do the second block. You're going to fall out and continue with the old code. If this statement is not true, then you're going to go to the else statement, and you're going to run this block of code and fall out the else, then fall off the else statement and continue with the old code. So let me explain what this is doing first. What I'm doing is taking I up here from the old code, and what I up here is doing is storing the index number of the I of the sprite you touched on the screen and storing that to this variable called I. What I'm doing down here is saying now, whatever that index number, if I, whichever that instance, say you clicked on a male sprite and its index number is 4, is less than mSprite, and we know we initiated mSprite to 6, then do this block of code. Well, 4 is less than 6 in this if statement, so you're going to do this block of code. First you're going to do is you're going to reduce mSprite to 1, because you're going to delete a male sprite, and that's going to keep track of how many sprites you have. And then the second is you're going to play the male sound effects. You're going to hit this else statement. Since you just done this first block of code, you're going to drop out of the if statement and do this old block code, which is you're physically going to remove the sprite from the screen, and that will take the sprite index out of the index array, sprite index array list. Then you're going to do the game loop again, and if you touch the screen again, it's going to register that touch. It's going to store that sprite index number to I, and then when you come to this code and say this time you touched a sprite that's a female and it has an index number of 8. If 8 is less than mSprite, which is 5 now, which 8 is not less than mSprite, you're going to go to the else statement and run this block of code. And all this block of code said is you're going to run the female sound effects. So as you can see, you're not going to delete anything here because you're only going to keep track of the male sprite. And then you're going to run down here to the old code and delete that sprite from the screen, and hence the sprite array list and index number. So, and that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here, save this file, and I'm going to actually run the game again. And I'm going to put the video on pause, and when it's up and running, I'll hit resume. So please hold. Okay, we're back. The game loaded. I'm going to move the mic closer to the computer speaker so you can hear the sound effects better. We're going to kill female, a male, female, male. As you can see, the sound effects are working correctly. That's it for this tutorial. I hope it helps out to finish up this Ed4Java's tutorial called Kill 'Em All. Again, it's not done by the book, but it's clean, it's simple, and I'm sorry if I'm talking quickly, but hopefully you were able to keep up, and good luck.